Welcome, students, staff, and guests to today's Veterans Program. My name is John Randich, and I have the honor and privilege to be the principal of Joliet Central High School. Thanks to all students and staff who are here today to help us celebrate Veterans Day and to recognize those veterans that are here in the front. I would also like to thank all of the veterans who are seated in the orchestra pit, their families, and the elected officials who are with us today. New this year is our school's recognition of women in the armed services. Also a special thanks to the Veterans Program Committee, whose names can be found in the program. At this time, I would like to introduce members of the JTHS community. Now please stand and remain standing until all are called. Audience, could you please hold your applause until all are called. JTHS board members, Jeff Pearson, President, Arlene Albert, Vice President, Paige Vanderheiden, Secretary, and board member Tyler Markham. Superintendent, Dr. Cheryl McCarthy, Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Arlandis Hampton, Assistant Principals, Mr. Brian Shaw and Dr. Jennifer Ray, member of the JTHS Archives Committee, Mr. Mark Kroll, and at this time I'd like to have all members of the JTHS staff and district administration, could you please stand at this time to be recognized? Thank you for coming today. Next, we will recognize the elected representatives of state and local government who are celebrating with us today. Please stand and remain standing. Audience, I ask you to hold your applause until all are called. Larry Walsh Jr., State Representative. Pat McGuire, State Senator. Will County Executive Larry Walsh. Mayor of the City of Joliet, Mr. Tom Geronti. Joliet City Council members, Ms. Betty Gavin and Mr. Robert Odekirk. Crest Hill Mayor, Mr. Ray Solomon, and Alderwoman Candy Thuringer. Thank you for coming today. Finally, I ask all students to respect each other and those speakers and veterans who are in this ceremony. Students are encouraged to model the 7 Steelman character attributes at all times. Today's veteran ceremony is a good chance for students and staff to learn more about Veterans Day, along with the sacrifices these veterans made for us so that we may enjoy the freedoms we have today. So, to begin today's program, I would like to introduce Joliet Central Senior Army Instructor, Major Phil Jaco.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the posting of the colors and the singing of our national anthem? United States of America, established July 4th, 1776 by the Second Continental Congress. The United States Army, established June 14, 1775 as the Continental Army by the Second Continental Congress. United States Navy, established October 13, 1775 as the Continental Navy by the Second Continental Congress. United States Marine Corps, established November 10th, 1775 as the Continental Marines by the Second Continental Congress. United States Coast Guard, established August 4th, 1790 by the First United States Congress. United States Air Force, established September 18th, 1947 by the 80th United States Congress. Please be seated.
Veterans Day is the annual United States holiday honoring our nation's military veterans. It is a federal holiday that is observed on November 11th, the anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I. Originally called Armistice Day, the name was changed in 1953 to Veterans Day, effectively acknowledging all veterans. It is with great pleasure that I provide the introduction to today's event, recognizing the sacrifices that members of the military have made and continue to make in times of national crisis. This year, we also wanted to recognize the contributions of women to the armed forces. ROTC Cadet Captain Isamar Chavez is wearing an authentic Women's Army Auxiliary Corps uniform from World War II, when women's roles in the military increased significantly. Numerous Joliet Central students are participating in today's assembly to show their gratitude and appreciation to our veterans. The following video, created by ROTC Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Anna Martinez, is her tribute to the women who have dedicated their lives to the armed services of the United States of America. And now, ROTC Cadet First Lieutenant Mercedes Solorzano's video on the meaning of Veterans Day. At this time, we ask the audience to please stand as Karen Perez and Juan Guerra play Echo Taps, accompanied by Marama Barone's video.
Please be seated. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the current faculty and staff at Joliet Central who are military veterans. As I call your name, please rise and face the audience. Mr. Chuck Ball, United States Army. Mr. Gardner Coughlin, United States Army. Mr. Mark Dunn, United States Navy. Ms. Frances Farmer. Not seeing her right now, but Ms. Farmer is an '83 graduate of Joliet Central. She works up in our cafeteria. Sergeant First Class retired Craig Foster. Mr. Larry Gillan, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant First Class retired Gregory Klugowitz, United States Army. Staff Sergeant retired Calvin Lee, United States Army. Mr. Raymond Orozco, United States Army. And Mr. Alfred Warren, United States Army. At this time, the band and choir, under the direction of Mr. Michael Fisk, will now perform the Battle Hymn of the Republic. This song was written by Julia Ward Howe during the American Civil War in 1861. I'd now like to introduce Ms. Lynn Lichtenauer, who's the Director of Alumni Relations for Joliet Township High School District 204.
Thank you, Commander Jaco. How do I follow that? It was wonderful. I want to say, and a wonderful audience here today, welcome to all our veterans. It is with pleasure that we honor your service to our country. When I call your name, please stand and face the audience. Charles Mueller. And Charles is 92 years old. In 1942, Charles enlisted in the Air Force, serving in World War II as a navigator on a B-17 bomber. American planes were dropping bombs on Berlin at the time in preparation for the D-Day invasion when his plane was shot down over Germany. Charles was held captive for 14 months in a German prison camp, Stalag Luft III, which is the prison camp that was depicted in the movie The Great Escape. Charles received the Purple Heart, and that Purple Heart is awarded to veterans who receive wounds in combat. Thank you, Charles. Jean Price. Jean was a Chief Petty Officer aboard the USS Hornet in the South Pacific in 1942 during the Battle of Santa Cruz. The ship was attacked by Japanese aircraft and bombs penetrated the flight deck. Jean was blown off the ship and regained consciousness in a lifeboat. Japanese submarines began torpedoing the Hornet, and the captain gave the order to abandon ship, but many of Jean's shipmates were lost at sea when the Hornet was sunk. Jean received the Purple Heart, recovered from his injuries, and went on to serve again in Korea. Thank you. The members of the Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery Memorial Squad are here with us today. And if they would stand, please. Steve Edmanis is the Vice Commander of the squad and the Monday Squad Leader of the National Cemetery Squad. He is a United States Air Force retired sergeant who served in Vietnam. He was a former police chief in law enforcement for 35 years. Steve's son is with him. That's Danny Edmanis, Chief Petty Officer serving in the United States Navy with Navy Intelligence. He has been deployed to Afghanistan and is presently stationed at Virginia Beach. He is also a commercial pilot with U.S. Airlines. Frank Smuda, United States Navy, a Petty Officer First Class, served in Vietnam. Frank is also a member of the Monday Memorial Squad. Then we have Tom Zettergren, who served 1968 through 1970. He was the Wednesday Bugler, and he's a United States Army Sergeant during Vietnam. The Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery Memorial Squad provides military honors for veterans' burials every day of the week. The honors include folding of the flag that is presented to the family, the rifle volley, and the playing of taps for each veteran. There are between 12 and 15 burials each day at our National Cemetery in Elwood. Rain, sleet, snow, or the heat of summer does not deter the Memorial Squad from their mission of providing full military honors for all veterans buried at our National Cemetery. They believe their mission is of providing the last full measure of devotion. It's a symbol of the nation's unending gratitude. Thank you. Kevin Cole. Kevin attended Joliet Central, followed by 4 years in the Marine Corps. As a Lance Corporal, he served 2 tours of duty in Iraq with the 3rd Marine Aviation Supply Air Wing. Kevin volunteered for Special Forces, training the Iraqi police and military. He is presently involved with the Patriot Partnership, veterans building or renovating homes for veterans here in Joliet. His young cousin, Paulie Smith, is presently a member of the Joliet Central ROTC. Thank you, Kevin. Felix Pasteris graduated with the class of 1940 at JT. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran with the rank of Tech Sergeant. During World War II, Felix spent 5 years serving in England, Africa, and Italy. Larry Everett was stationed at Da Nang Air Force Base, where he was attached to the 37th Air Rescue and Recovery Squadron. The squadron personnel were known as the Jolly Green Giants, performing daring helicopter rescues. They were responsible for safely rescuing injured soldiers and airmen. Larry retired from Joliet Township High School in 2012 as a member of our supervisory staff for building and grounds. Stone City Post 2199 Honor Guard. Their members are with us. We have Henry Chavez. Henry is the class of 1952. He is the Honor Guard commander. He was with the United States Army, served in the occupation of West Berlin. David Gutierrez, class of 1943, United States Army combat medic in World War II. He's 86 years old. Al Hoppy served with the United States Marines in the Korean War. Al received the Purple Heart for injuries he sustained during the conflict. Ed Chartrand, a United States Navy veteran who served in the Vietnam War. Richard Sacy, class of 50, served in the United States Army in the Korean War, receiving the Purple Heart. Honor Guard members assist at veteran services on Veterans Day at the Will County Courthouse. On Memorial Day, they visit the veterans' graves at several area cemeteries. Thank you, Stone City Post. Hank Pillard. Hank was a member of the United States Army, a corporal in the military police, and he was part of the largest call-up during the Korean War. Thank you, Hank. Veterans of Carillon Lakes. These veterans, some of them were here with us last year during the ceremony. However, they also returned to be with us today. Veterans, please stand. Oh, you are standing. Thank you. We want to welcome you. And we have veterans from the Lockport VFW Post 5788. They include Specialist Fourth Class Jack Piccolo, who was served in the U.S. Army in Vietnam. Jack is also the post commander. We also have Private First Class Al Pazina, who was with the United States Army serving in Germany. Robert Leib, United States Army, rank of Staff Sergeant, and he was stationed at Fort Stewart in Georgia. He's with us again today. He was here in 2012 also. I would like to mention Lawrence W. Smith. He is deceased. He's the father-in-law of Joe Lopez, our Director of Building and Grounds. Lawrence was a Marine Corps sergeant who served his country in the Korean War. With millions of men joining the armed forces during World War II, women flooded into the factories to do men's work here on the home front. These women became known as Rosie the Riveter, representing the American woman who worked in factories and at arsenals producing ammunition and war supplies. Lottie Frances Palmer Newman, she's with us. She's 93 years old. Lottie worked at the Joliet Arsenal loading 55mm shells with TNT. She explained that the TNT looked like rice was unloaded from boxcars into tubs. It was melted down into liquid, stirred until it resembled apple butter, then poured into empty shells. And that was one of Lottie's responsibilities. Thank you so much for your service, Lottie. Mary Ellen Rocket Smith, she's with us. She's in the back of the house. She's 91 years old, and she worked at the Joliet Arsenal making bombs. It was her responsibility on the assembly line to fill bomb casings with 10,000 pounds of TNT. She stood on a platform as the bomb casing came to her, and then she worked to fill each casing. So we thank her for her service. Mildred Finley worked at the Joliet Arsenal boxing TNT, and her son Vern, who is with her today, is a U.S. Navy veteran who served with the Seabees in Vietnam. And yes, we can do that. And then we have the last lady is Louise Morris. Her memory serves her very well, and in our phone conversation, she tells me that she was a welder in the Globe Aircraft Factory in Lockport during the war years. She welded and helped build target planes used to train our fighter pilots. She also worked for the United States Navy making aluminum depth charges. So with our veterans and our Rosie the Riveters, and those veterans who I did not acknowledge, each one individually, please stand. You're with us today. We want to honor you. Please stand. Thank you very much.
All right, the band will now play a song that is based on the very famous speech that General Douglas MacArthur gave in his farewell address in 1962 to the Corps of Cadets at West Point Military Academy. The song is titled Duty, Honor, Country. honor, country, a code of conduct and chivalry of those who guard this beloved land. An ideal so noble it arouses a sense of pride and yet humility. An expression of the ethics of the American man-at-arms. Duty, honor, country. Those three words build courage when courage seems to fail. Regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith. Create hope when hope seems forlorn. The American man-at-arms, above all other people, prays for peace, for he must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. Duty, honor, country. The unbelievers will say these are but words, a slogan, or a flamboyant phrase. Every demagogue, every cynic, and every hypocrite will try to downgrade them to the extent of mockery and ridicule. The code which those words perpetuate embraces the highest moral law and will stand the test of any ethics or philosophies ever published for the uplift of mankind. Around 1,000 campfires, on 100 battlefields, listening for the witching melody of faint bugles blowing reveille, far-off drums beating the long roll. This is the story of the American man-at-arms. His name and fame are the birthright of every American citizen. In his youth and his strength, his love and his loyalty, he gave all that mortality can give. He has never failed us. Were he to do so, a million ghosts in olive drab, in brown khaki, in blue and gray, would rise from their white crosses, thundering those magic words, duty, honor, country. The band sounded phenomenal. The band and choir will now perform a tribute to the armed services by performing a medley of the 5 service songs. If you are a veteran or a relative or friend of a loved one who has served in the military or is currently serving in the military, we ask that you stand when that respective service song is played. United States Army.